I'm almost always struck by how much we're willing to discount other people. And we just simply go to, well, that's just the placebo effect, or that is just your anecdotal evidence, or show me the evidence first and then I'll believe you. I think it's extraordinarily fascinating that we all have a tendency to do this in much of our lives, much of if you're a researcher, absolutely you do that all the time. You sort of default to the show me the evidence. But in my own experience, what do I know, right? Like what the hell do I know? In my own experience, actually, your humanity is your spidey sense. Whatever something you're like, wait a minute, this works if I do this. Or, um, you know, this one particular thing is the way that you actually do it. And everything works out. And we discount so strongly all of this tacit knowledge, your humanity, the cognition or the intuition that you have. And I would strongly argue that these feelings where you think like, hey, this is actually working for me, or like that doesn't work, or any number of different things actually is probably the way that it actually works. I strongly believe in feelings and listening to feelings a lot more than what we often default to. Now, the problem that you often almost always face is people will discount you and they will say, well, that's just your anecdotal evidence. That's your, show me the evidence. Show me that's just, um, that's just a placebo effect and all those kind of things. And yes, there is some of that does happen, right? And we have to be aware of that. But I actually think it's actually relatively smaller than we give it credit for. Um, And I think like intuition and sort of feelings and those kind of things are actually probably real effects that are going on that we often don't tap into. There's two ways that you can have that actually happen. The first one is through a tremendous amount of experience, right? And a tremendous is like you've done it thousands of times. And then you can identify what the particular effect is, but you can't explain how you actually got there. That's what expertise actually is, right? Like that's what it actually means. And there's many things in all of our lives where we've done that 1,000 times, and you know that this thing is the way that you actually do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense to rely on experts, right? So, actual evidence sometimes will actually be very faulty in those circumstances, because it gets experts to sort of discount what they are doing. Now, the problem is, I understand that we all feel that we're experts, right? And so it's challenging to sort of tease that effect apart on what that actually is, right? And then on the second effect that, and science gets this wrong. Medicine is horrible for this. They get it wrong so much. Um, and that is that there's moderators. So what is a moderator? A moderator is just another variable, a spurious variable that changes the effect or changes the effect size that goes on. So for some people, it might work really, really well, right? And they may have a substantial effect. And then for other people, it just might be an right? Like imagine you smoked a joint, right? You had some marijuana, and for some people, it just totally knocks them out, and they're just like out of it, right? And then another person, they're just like, this doesn't do anything for me. I don't really care for it. It's just like meh. Um, and that this effect happens all of the time. And so what medicine does is they look for a generalized effect across everybody and see if it actually works out, right? They don't really look for this nuance. This nuance now is called personalized medicine, where everybody has a little bit more of a different effect, and depends on many different factors that are going on, sort of environmental conditions, your individual traits and features, genetic, and such as like genetics and all those kind of things. All of those things sort of mess around with different effects. Um, but here's the thing, right? It doesn't mean, we know this exists, right? We know that that is a very real thing, but um, all of us have a tendency to discount this, right? Including myself. And we're just like, you know, um, this effect doesn't exist unless it affects me, but it might affect me totally different than somebody else, right? And we have to be very aware of that. Um, so the challenge relies then is, how do you sense picking up which one is, the true thing, the true effect. And I think, there's two elements to it. And this is just my own belief, but I think that there's evidence, there's scientific evidence behind it, right? So the first effect is like experience, a lot of experience in a particular domain. And then the second thing is that you have to be thoughtful in thinking about what's actually going on, right? Like really, really think about it, and paying attention to it and altering different conditions that you are somewhat experimenting to what's going on. Now, the first one is somewhat more obvious when somebody has more experience than others. You can sort of see that. The second one is challenging, because how do we know what is the true effect, right? Or how do we know when somebody's actually paying attention or not? We don't, right? Like but but that doesn't mean that you can't sort of adjust these things and find the thing that doesn't work for you, right? Like, medicine and much of science has repeatedly been wrong and repeatedly discounted these kind of effects, right? Where we've looked at somebody as like, oh, I'm feeling this really well, or, this is not working out for me. And then you just discount it, right? And we know that almost always when there's many people or several people that have discounted it, um, or, where somebody's like, there's something going on, and people discount it on in somewhat of a mass scale, that there's probably something that's actually going on, and it's just not well tested in that particular domain, or it's just not done really well, right? I think we should be more, and that's where people start getting into the willy-nilly stuff. Like I tend to discount a little bit, like holistic type stuff, but there is truth to it, right? There is something that's going on, because there are some people that are getting some effects, and we have to somewhat figure out how to pay attention to those. And the challenge is how do you weed out all of that sort of woo-hoo, sort of magic kind of stuff from real science? And it's just very, very daunting to do. It's very difficult, but it doesn't mean that there's often some underlying grain of salt that's actually there that we should be paying attention to. And that often gives inspiration for future research and people to explore. All right. Take care. Have a wonderful day.